It was crack. It was cracking. Your boy Savage, aka Seth Cisneros. You know the logo. You tuning in to Seth Lokes Hood Tales. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Let's get to the politic. Big shout out to everybody showing the channel love. I appreciate the love and support, the interactions. Before I start this video, I am no way form promoting the gang life to anybody. I'm just telling a testimony, and in the process, hopefully I can open somebody's eyes up to the real in things, for they don't take them road. They don't go down that road that I went down. You know, that's the most important thing. So let's get to this video. And in this video, it comes from a conversation I was having with somebody at my gym, the homie Antonio. There's a couple people that be tuning in to my channel. Big shout out to y'all. The ones that be at the gym, the subscribers. But we were chopping it up, and Antonio, pretty much, he's done penitentiary time out here in DOC in Colorado, and he's also, I think he did some time in Seattle. But he was asking me, because he's kind of, you know, he kind of knows, you know, how a yard operates, and he knows the struggles of different politics. He's been around it, and he also knows, you know, pretty much, you know, when it comes to Crips, a lot of Crips beef with each other. It depends on what car you ride with. It depends on what neighborhood you are from. There's going to be a potential chance that you might have conflict with other Crips. You know, that's just, there's no way getting around it. And, you know, he could tell the aspect with me, you know what I'm saying, that being on the yard for 7 years, there was going to come a time that I got into with other Crips, you know, especially being pretty much, you know, Chicano and being, you know what I'm saying, a Crip. So he asked me, he was like, did you ever get into it with other Crips? And, you know, how did the aspect of other Crips, how did they, you know, take the presence of you, because you're not the norm and things? I mean, you know, there's certain situations that, you know, there's other Chicano Crips or Chicano Bloods, and, you know, you hear stories about, you know, they had it terrible. You know, they had a lot of situations come their way, negative. And, you know, he asked me, you know, how was my stay? So let's break it down, man. You know, let's break it down. And I'm gonna try to be as truthful. I'm gonna try to be as real as I can in these situations. So so when you a Chicano Crip, or you a Chicano Blood, and more Chicano Crip, you gonna have a lot more baggage than, you know, a lot more people when you hit that compound, when you hit them penitentiary, you know, them penitentiary trenches. You know, that's why, to the youngsters, man, you have to really think about what you do in life, because every action that you put out there and everything you decide when you're young, that stuff will follow you down the road, and you will have to deal with consequences. Consequences is one of the biggest things you have to remember. There's always a consequence to bad actions. There's always a domino effect to your actions. You know, when I was growing up, bro, the norm in the neighborhood was Crippin'. The norm was everybody around me was Crips. So, you know, I adapted to the key ways. I adapted to that life. Everything I knew around me was Crippin'. And I didn't even know I was setting myself up for a big target. I was setting myself up for situations, because in the penitentiary, yes, you have certain situations in the pen that you hear about, other fools made it through. But when you get on that compound in them prison yards, there's people that already have views. There's people that were taught, different things. And when you get to that compound, they're not trying to hear what you got to say. Them fools only know their politics. They only know their program. Just like you only know your program. So if you was really banging on the streets, you only know the program and the politics of, if you was really banging Crip or Blood and you was really pushing the line, you only know them politics. You don't know nothing else. When I was growing up, we didn't see Sudanos or essays and the Rasa. We didn't even see Northanos, bro. We seen our hood, and that's all that matters. If you wasn't from the hood, you was no good. I could care less about what you trying to talk about over here and what politics is over here. I could care less about the racial issues and the white boys over here, or, you know what I'm saying, or this. We only knew our hood. We were, you know what I'm saying, embedded in our neighborhood, and nothing else mattered. But down the road, it comes back to bite you in the ass, because when you get to that compound, bro, you with the big boys, and now you with real fools pushing a line for a code. So you have a big target on your back from everybody on the compound. When you hit the yard, nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows what activities you done put in for the hood. And nobody really cares, because everybody on the yard is real life fools doing time. There's killers that are never getting out that put it down for their politics and their program. So all that stuff that you were doing on the streets, that don't play a part to the compound, and you don't automatically get respect for that. Now you have to really, you know what I'm saying, get on that compound and push your line if that's what you're really doing. And you got to earn your respect. Respect's not just given on them compounds, because now you're in somebody else's life. Now you're in somebody else's world. To a killer, your little things that you were doing on the streets don't matter, bruh. There's a code, and you got to earn your respect. It's not given, like I said. So I hit the compound, bro, and that was a big thing, because a lot of people, before I even went to the pen, try to always tell me this. They always try to tell me this, like, you gonna have it very hard being a Chicano Crip and trying to come to a world where that's not the norm. They automatically look down on that. So what are you gonna do? And in my mind, I had to push the line extra for it. I had to really, really push the line for what I believed, but that's all I knew. So you ain't gonna take it out of me. And me doing that put more baggage on my neck, because now I'm going against the grain, and luckily I was taught by individuals that really taught me how to survive, or I would have never made it through the penitentiary. And luckily I met some real life fools that seen how I held myself and how I handle business. They took me under the wing, and these were fools that were respected on the yard. But not everybody's going to get that treatment, because not everybody is a generational fool. Some people, they might just choose the lifestyle, and they don't know nobody, and ain't nobody can vouch, and their family members ain't respected. I had the luxury of that. People know my family. People know my uncles. People, even different cars, they know my uncles for doing time, So automatically, my family's name is great through the system. So there was a aspect of my family's respect. You know what I'm saying? And then they seen that regardless of the situation, I always would handle business. It didn't matter if I lost. It didn't matter if, the situation was not, it was not good for me. I always handle business. So I hit the yard, bro. And when you hit the yard and the politics that I'm from, the Crips, you automatically have a target from everybody. You automatically have a target from the racial aspect, And like I said, Colorado don't really have like the craziest racial aspect, but there's still racist foods. There's still foods that push that line for racial aspect because it's all about, some foods think it's all about your race, especially out here in the West Coast. You're going to have, the target on your back from the gangbangers that you got into in the streets. If you're from a certain neighborhood and your neighborhood has conflict with other foods from different neighborhoods, and there's some foods on that yard, you're going to take on the baggage of your neighborhood, and you're going to have a target from your neighborhood. And see, that was one of the biggest things why I could not put down the Crip rag, where I could not put down my flag, because of the simple fact is I had enemies here in that yard. So what would it look like for me to be this big old banger on the streets and be active and really pushing the line in the streets, and then get to the compound and I've put down my warrior flag. I put down the revolution because of the simple fact is I was a little scared. But you take on that domino effect, and you take on a target from your own organization. You take on a target from other Crips, because of the simple fact is you're coming in to their politics, and all they know is that, Cripping is a black thing. They don't see the struggle. They don't know the struggle. And why would they care? Because of the simple fact is they got their own struggle. You know what I'm saying? So you can't blame them. But at the same time, you got to handle your business and let it be known that this is what you really believe. You know what I'm saying? And that's the aspect that most fools that try to go down that avenue break before they even hit the compound. That's why you have a lot of fools that, you hear that they used to be, this fool used to be from this Crip hood growing up. He used to think he was a Crip. But when they hit that real compound and you got real fools that don't care on that compound about what you used to do on the streets, you're conforming to the penitentiary code. You're gonna conform to what these fools are talking about, and most fools break before they even hit the GP line, bro. The only difference with me is I couldn't, because I caused a lot of beef in the streets. So my first couple years, it was always, always conflict. It was always banging with fools, fades up, heads up with different individuals. But ain't nobody can go into my background and my history, my bad before I was interrupted. Apologize, man. So what I was saying is, bro, you can, go back to my resume, bro, and there was no hoe in me. I handled business in all aspects. And in doing that and having to do that for so long, it installed in me, and it actually made me a person that thought I had to handle everything. Even when I got out here, bro, stuff that I couldn't even control, I had to handle it. And when I didn't handle it, I felt very like I was doing injustice. I felt very bad and guilty. Like, you didn't handle that, Out here, there's a saying that says, choose and pick your battles. But being in the prison yard and being in penitentiary, you had to handle all your battles. You didn't choose. You had to handle it, because if you didn't, you would become a prison victim. And that was programmed into me for 7 years straight, so mentally it affected me. And my wife even used to have to talk to me like, bro, you don't have to handle everything, but I would feel lesser than a man if I didn't, So that was one of the biggest situations when I got out, relearning you don't have to handle everything. Like, you don't have to, be this superhero, Sometimes you overthink stuff and you take stuff and you're offensive, and it ain't even, them situations. But I really hated it when I first got out, because it was a mental situation, bro. I felt, less of a man if I didn't handle business, So that being said, let's get into one situation when I got into it with another, pretty much my neighborhood got into it with some other Crips from a different neighborhood. So I hit Bend County in 2009, and I went to the west side of the facility. There's a east side of the facility. There's a west side of the facility. And the west side of the facility, um, it was two two units, and then in the units they had 3 pods. So if it was 7, you had pod A, B, and C, and every pod in that unit would have at least, I would have to say, 150 people in every pod, if I'm not mistaken. And it was 2 levels. There was a top tier and then there was the bottom tier, and it was a big unit, huge unit, and every pod had that. And then 8 also had that. It was the same setup. But on the east side of the facility, you had smaller units, and you had 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And basically, them units had 3 pods, but the pods were way little, where it was like only maybe like 50 people in each pod. So pretty much they called the west side the Thunderdome units because it was bigger, it was louder, it was harder for the guards to really control it. So when I went to the west side of the facility, the homies that were in there were super deep, and there was not really no structure. So the Crips in there did whatever they wanted. And in being in that kind of that atmosphere, you know, the homies were, I would have to say, very rambunctious. They were, you know, there was no structure over anybody's head, so they were doing what they want. They were always in the mix. They were always beating fools up. They were always fighting fools. It became to an aspect where they were bullies, to be honest. And there was one era of me being in them units that the homies for a whole like 2 weeks were just bullying fools and really actually putting hands on a lot of fools over small things. So the gang coordinator, he gets wind, and they actually one day, like, you're living in them units and you're comfortable because the homies are dominant and whoop-de-whoop, but they just start calling you over the intercom saying you're moving to another unit, you're moving to this unit. So they actually, you know, broke up the numbers. They actually made a lot of the Crips move to other units in the facility. Like, and it's an uncomfortable thing because you start getting comfortable to, you know, them units, and you're like, you know, you really are having fun, really. So, but they must have caught wind, or somebody told that the Crips were in there being bullies. So then they move me to the east side of the facility, and on the east side of the facility, it's a whole different world. The homies are way more structured. The homies have mandatory workouts. The homies have mandatory, you better come to the yard, you better show face. The homies have mandatory meetings on the yard, and if you don't show up to them meetings, the homies, you know, hands-on discipline. And it was a good aspect because there was a lot more structure. Like on the west side of the facility, nobody had to ride with each other. Like, it was not mandatory we all rode with each other. But on the east side of the facility, we all, you know, had to ride with each other, and everybody had to move as one unit. And I could remember there was this neighborhood called the East Side Riders, you know what I'm saying? And they had some of their main homies over there and some youngsters pushing the line. And, you know, they were real militant. They got down. They were real gang banged out. And they held it down for a certain part of the aspect. And my homies were over there also. I had a couple homies from the neighborhood, and we actually had a good bunch of homies from my neighborhood, the set, and we was doing our own things. But in that, I think they felt like there was a aspect where, you know, we started kind of just doing our own thing, and it was nothing like that, you know what I'm saying? But you have your own homies, and you know these fools from the street. You want to function with these fools from the street. You don't want to be in everybody's mix. So we had our own workout car, and I remember there was a time when the atmosphere kind of got bad, and they were like, you guys think you're too big for everybody else, and it wasn't like that, but that's how they felt. So another homie rose up, and I'm not gonna lie, this fool, his demeanor was like, I don't mess with any of these fools, that they're not from the hood, they're no good. And I was trying to explain it like that's not how it is on this side. Everybody's good, everybody's riding together. And he's like, he just wasn't listening. So his demeanor was already messed up, and these fools seen it, and they kind of started having a bad taste. But in that, they turned that bad taste into having a bad taste for all of us from our hood. And I could remember the situation occurred, bro. I didn't go to chow. I didn't go to breakfast, and breakfast was called like 6:37 in the morning. And I guess a situation happened with that fool, the homie that rode up to the yard, and one of them fools is little homies, and they had a argument at the table over some situation with money, and it caused a scene in the chow hall. And when you're in the chow hall, you don't never want to cause a scene in front of guards, and the guards caught on to it. So I guess the homie that rode up, he made the biggest scene, and nobody told me about it. And remember, I was already telling you these fools had a bad taste. So that day, I used to get up sometimes late, about 11:30, 12. And I woke up, and the first thing I do in the morning, brush my teeth, I go get a cup of coffee instant, and you had to put that in the microwave. And I come out to the tier, and I'm chilling with the neighbor, and we're talking. And I remember I had the cup of coffee, I had the shot, but I was talking to this dude, and I looked down, and one of them folks from East Side Riders, he pretty much was mugging up on the top tier, and he was looking, and I said, this fool is tripping. I said, what's up? And he was just like kind of nodding his head. I said, he's tripping. So I went to go get water, went to the microwave, and I put the coffee in the microwave, and then I heard that fool, and he's like, hey, let me talk to you. So when I went into the cell, and his other homie kind of shut the door, because you never want to, you know what I'm saying, be in the unit and let business known. But as soon as I went in there, he was like, hey, homie, your homie got disrespectful with my little partner. You riding for him? And I was like, who? And he's like, that fool, whoopty whoop. I'm not going to say the name. And I say, yeah, that's my cousin. And then he just cracked me. He hit me, boom. And pretty much he didn't even really draw me. And I literally ran up. Like when he hit me, I got into him because he was taller, and I started hitting him in his body, like giving him body shots, and his other homie hooked me. Boom. And he dropped me. And I remember when I dropped, these fools started actually giving me the boots. Luckily, they didn't lock that door, like shut it, because like them cell doors, if you shut it all the way, it locks. And I went into survival mode, and I hopped backwards, and I rode out of the cell, bro. And I went upstairs, and everybody in the unit's like, what the heck's going on? So in my mind, I'm actually about to stick this fool. I'm going to stick these fools, because I didn't really think that there was actually conflict, but in my mind, bro, like I was very hurt. I was very mad, and I was going to actually stab this fool up. And I started actually, scraping a toothbrush on the ground to form it into a point. Well, anyways, afternoon yard comes, and everybody already done heard about it. So we go to the yard, and the homies go, and I explain, and everybody's like, what the heck? What just happened? Well, the car was in a disarray, because they're like, what just happened? Why did these fools pull that? And two fools that were OGs that had the keys, they called for everybody from Brick City and Eastside Riders to get the heads up. And it turned into pretty much, after we came back from yard, everybody had to go in units and fight. And pretty much it was like a whole afternoon process. And they came and wrapped everybody off the yard because somebody got hit with a lock. And I got eventually down the months, because we all went to the hole, and some people got shipped off the yard. I went back to GP on that yard, but that stuff lingered into other facilities, and it domino affected to other fools from our neighborhood, and them fools from their neighborhood fighting in other facilities over it. And what was crazy about it is, bro, is like we had some homies from that neighborhood, and we were good. But just because the situation occurred, bro, there was fools from the neighborhood in that neighborhood that had to actually they had to get the heads up even if they were cool. So yeah, man, that's just a couple little different things, bro. Like I said, man, it's wild. Think before you do things, man, because there's always a domino effect. But I'm gonna tap out, man. Mile high salute to the real. You know what it is. Let's go.